My name is Alimamy Kamara. My paper number is 145. And my topic is about investigating the impact of supply chain management on the performance of manufacturing industries in Sierra Leone. Taking a case study of the Sierra Leone bottling company. In my presentation, I'll be looking at the introduction, research methodology, analysis and the results, and finally the recommendation and the conclusions. First, under the introduction, let's look at the background. And the background has to do with what is a supply chain. Supply chain normally involves various participants who perform a sequence of activities in moving the physical goods or services from a point of origin up to the point of consumption. And looking at supply chain management, it can be configured in two ways. It can either be configured in a circular form or it can be configured in an horizontal form. But each of these configurations has the same procedures. That is, it starts from the extractions of raw materials up to the final point of the consumers. And this procedures has to do with the raw materials, suppliers, the manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and finally to the final consumers. The next part of it has to do with supply chain is a parent name. It has so many other branches, and some of those branches are, it has a branch of that of the production, the inventory management, the transportation, the distribution, the manufacturing process, so on and so forth. But for my own presentation, it's purely based on that of the manufacturing process. Next to the presentation is the problem statement. I highlighted three main problems that has been faced by the Sierra Leone bottling company, and one of them says there is always a problem of a shortage of the company product, particularly during the festive seasons. 2, there is a problem with supply lead time, transportation facilities, and the holding of raw materials as well as the finished product. The third one is the company is being faced with a problem of packaging challenges. And next to the presentation is about the objectives of the study. I also highlighted three main objectives of the study. And the first one says to evaluate the supply chain of the company in order to make a rapid and drastic improvement in its process or the procedure of its supply chain. And the second one is to assess the importance of supply chain management on the performance of the Sierra Leone bottling company. And the final objective of the study is to evaluate the challenges or the problem that have been faced by the Sierra Leone bottling company while adopting the supply chain management. The next point of the presentation has to do with the limitations of the study. There are so many beveraging or manufacturing companies in Sierra Leone, but the research did not look at all of those. It's only focused on, or it's only limited to the Sierra Leone bottling company. The second limitation is the research is only limited to a time frame. The third one is when you look at the performance measurement of supply chain, it's been divided into two. We have the financial performance and the non-financial performance. This research did not look at both of them. It's only limited to that of the non-financial performance. Then the final limitation has to do with this research is only limited to three shared supply chain. That is the supplier, manufacturer, and that of the retailer. Under the methodology, I looked at the framework, the data collection, and how the data has been analyzed. Then in my framework, I consider 4 main variables: strategy and design, enabling infrastructure, process, and performance. Enabling infrastructure is also being divided into 3, that is ICT, human resource, and organizational structure. For process also, it's also been divided into 5: customer relationship management, the delivering, the warehouse management, sourcing, and planning. While the performance also divided into 3. I have responsiveness, reliability, and that of the flexibility. The first 3 variables, that is strategy and design, enabling infrastructure, and the process, I refer to as them as the enablers. It is from these 3 that will determine the performance of the company. Next is the data collection, how data was being collected. The data was collected using both the primary and the secondary data. For the primary data, an online questionnaire survey was created through the use of a Google form, while the secondary data, the use of books, academic publication, international journals, articles, and internet were used to review the literature. And under the quantitative data analysis, the study used a descriptive statistics which integrates both the quantitative and that of the qualitative techniques. The data was presented diagrammatically through the use of tables and figures. In doing the analysis, a statistical package for the social scientist version 23 and Minitab was used to compute the data. I have a data, the result for strategy and design, enabling infrastructure, process, and that of the performance. But in the comprehensive analysis, when you look at the data, you will see that performance has the highest mean of 4.076 when compared to strategy and design, enabling infrastructure, and process. And strategy and design has a second mean of 4.073, while process has the highest. Enabling infrastructure has the lowest mean of 4.170 when compared to all the other variables. Then moving on to the conclusions and recommendation. First, let me talk about the conclusion. My first conclusion here is the supply chain management system have a very great impact on the aspect of productivity, the profitability, and the overall performance of the operations of the Sierra Leone Botley Company. My second conclusion is it was concluded that strategy and design and enabling infrastructure plus process and performance have a strong positive relationship, while process and performance have a moderate relationship with enabling infrastructure. This one has to do with when checking if there is any relationship that exists among the variables. And the third conclusion has to do with the supply chain management is faced with some challenges in their bid for implementation of the supply chain best practices. One of them is there is always a lack of production centers, there is a long time, and inadequate number of distribution. 2, poor technology, old and updated equipment and machinery. 3, failure on the part of management officials to give a deserved attention to the functions of the supply chain and that of the distributors. The final aspect of the presentation has to do with the recommendation. The first recommendation here is the company should ensure they try to decentralize its production process by extending production branches, factories in the provinces. 2, management of the company should replace the old and outdated equipment and machinery and also introduce technological innovations in the company production process by also ensuring they incorporate enterprise resource planning. And the third one is the company needs to build more outlets throughout the country where customers can easily have access to the company product. And 4, in order to avoid supply management challenges arising from the suppliers in future contracts, it is advisable for the Sierra Leone Botley Company to consider suppliers who have demonstrated reliability in the previous contracts by fulfilling its obligation of the contract. And finally, proper monitoring system should be set to look at the staffs, the affairs of the distributors and agents in order not to hold on to products of the company in anticipation of higher profit. I thank you.